Welcome back to another episode of the IAA Mobility Visionary Club. Today is all about interior and design. The big automotive trends that we're always talking about, electrification, sustainable design, are presenting huge opportunities for designers to think about the cars we drive in brand new ways. I'm pleased to have a great panel here with me in the studio. Guys, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves, and I'm also going to ask you to answer one question. What does the future of interior design look like? Oliver, let's start with you.
My name is Oliver Siekert. I'm head of BMW interior design. And I personally believe we are in a transformation phase of car industry. And I'm super keen on designing this post-transformation interior design experience.
Sounds good. Oliver, we're pleased to have you. Giles, tell us about yourself.
Yes, my name is Giles Taylor. I'm the Vice President of Design for FAW, which stands for First Automotive Works. And that's a group based in China. It's an interesting question you asked because I come from Rolls-Royce. Where the whole of an interior for a Rolls-Royce was actually always based on a sense of occasion. So I'm looking forward to somehow the mobility focus that we're experiencing right now transitioning into what I call a sense of occasion for mobility.
A sense of occasion. I'm looking forward to diving into that one. Okay, and Jeremy, tell us about yourself.
My name's Jeremy Offer. I'm SVP and Chief Design Officer for Arrival. What I'm looking forward to, less reliance on digital screens and more of a push for ambient technology. I would also like to see a day when space and light is considered to be the new premium, the new luxury, rather than quilted leather and walnut.
Okay, well, space and luxury are two topics that I think BMW and a former Rolls-Royce guy are going to have a lot to say about. I'm hoping we can have a dynamic conversation and feel free to agree to disagree. Let's start with a really basic question. What is good design in a nutshell?
Good design for me is, I would put it on two words, wow and meaningful. First of all, I think the first impression needs to create a wow from a customer side. This is very important because we are in a high competition of products in our industry world. So wow needs to attract you. And meaningful, of course, then gives over the time the customer a benefit. And it's a lot about customer benefits we are looking for. And it's not only for car styling. I'm talking about designing customer experiences.
Wow and meaningful. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, we're on the same page with as Oliver here. I think for me, we have three really key design principles. If we hit all of those three attributes, then I think we can consider that good design.
Tell us what the three attributes are.
So the first one is mindful. We need to design for the planet, we need to design sustainably, and we need to design for our users' health and well-being. The second one is minimal. Reduction, simplification. As to paraphrase Dieter Rams, we don't want to remove the poetry from that, but we still need to remove all of the excesses that we currently see, from my perspective, in interior design. And the third one is magical, which again speaks to the poetry of design. You know, it's those emotional touch points. It's that sense of wonder that you get from experiencing something new and innovative for the first time. Okay, wow, magical. I'm sensing some overlap here. Giles, you got something different?
Well, ever since Jeremy's possibly accused me of being in the land of walnut and quilting, which I'm not, I come back because it's an interesting debate we had earlier on about the point at which minimalism becomes sterile. You know, and at what point the magic that you just alluded to and the sense of occasion that I spoke about is removed.
This was a green room debate that a lot of our viewers didn't get to see. So give us, condense your positions into a nutshell.
Back to my point about good design. I think, absolutely meaningful. For me, it's purposeful. You know, it fulfills the purpose, which is part of the brief, and that includes attracting customers. And then I think, the best designs, interior and exterior, that I've always connected with are the ones that you cannot walk past, whether it's a beautiful train, a plane, or a beautiful classic car, or even a modern car, that you think it's got something beyond the sum of its parts. There is a sterility to design that just meets the functional brief, and if you can include something extra, then I think it's good design. And depending on the object it is, you can always talk about what that extra is, but I believe that a role of a good design is to find the extra. It's possibly quite easy to find the function, but to go that one step further takes time.
Which is becoming more difficult as cars become more like devices on wheels. There is an inherent, I guess, disposition to make them more like our pieces of technology that we carry around in our pockets, which comes to the essence of a more user-centered approach to design. And I think all of this, as well as the physical, the digital marrying together, form the heart of what good design should be.
So you're saying we shouldn't necessarily default to the cars of the future looking more and more like our phones, shiny screens.
No, I think there is a move when you remove the engine and you remove the kind of, let me put it this way, I think we've spent the last century defining vehicles with inherent speed. I think where we should be heading towards is a much more sustainable approach to design and a customer-centric, user-centered approach to design, where we're designing for the next century for that level of sustainability. And again, it all, frankly, speaks to what design should be as we move into this new paradigm with electric vehicles, where we're removing the engine, we're removing that kind of emotional connection to the driving experience to some extent. And there is this point about maybe it becoming a more sterile experience. But again, coming back to my quote at the beginning, still maintaining that poetry, that relationship that you have with the car that we all have. I don't think we want to lose that, even if cars are becoming more like devices.
And I agree that we are coming from a like physical sculpture, and that like we are acting, and customer expectations are like this, that we need to be a little bit more like digital first focused. But I also say that it's not the solution just to bring in displays and set it up as a device. Yeah? We see, especially when you design premium products, you need a lot of physical and sculptural, precious and high-value products. This is like we do also today in CE devices. They are not only like software-driven. Yeah, the physical needs to step back a little bit. Yeah? So there is definitely some changes in designing cars, how we treat it, and it's more a holistic view. I think we are on the same page when we talk about that. It's not only a pure digital experience. It is something which needs to combine or even do something or create something more. I call it more like phygital. Yeah, something which is
phygital.
Phygital.
Is this a word you're pointing?
It's an interplay between.
It is a word.
Unfortunately, I don't know if it's a word.
This is a new one for me.
It's like a play on words about a physical experience combined with a digital experience.
But for me, the essence of the digital experience comes from the physical. Without the physical, I mean, we've all got arms and legs. As far as I'm concerned, for the next however many millennia we're still on this planet, we're still going to be engaged primarily in a physical experience. Now, that physical experience can very definitely be a gateway, a portal to a digital experience, a series of experiences based around software. But without that physical interaction, the digital is nothing. Unless you're talking about more, as I said at the beginning, more ambient digital experiences where we're not talking about something on a screen, we're not prodding a touch screen, we're experiencing digital software communication with our vehicles in the same way that we would communicate at home. We wouldn't accept our homes full of screens.
I think some people's homes are already full of screens.
Well, one big screen maybe, but that level of ambient technology, so for whether it be Alexa, for example, where it's in the background, it's a quieter level of interaction that you experience, which obviously in an automotive environment is going to be a much safer one to experience as well.
I think we've done screens. I think in the last sort of 3 to 5 years, you know, this sort of image that we have in our minds is the screen in front of the driver, the screen in the centre, and maybe the screen on the passenger side. And then we did lots of screens to appear to be quite techy, and we reduced a little bit as well. I think, you know, where we're going now is actually how to do, whether they're screens or biometrics or even, you know, retina recognition in some way, in terms of the AI of the car, actually looking at you and getting more integrated into who you are and how you drive or how you behave. I think it's actually posing right now, as we speak, something new for us to tackle. So yeah, I mean, you know, it's been spoken about for the last few years, digitization, and we can make screens look beautiful. We have actual graphics that are so fantastic, it's possibly a reason to buy the car. But I think we're on this trajectory now where we actually, in the last sort of 3 years, have probably done screens, and I say screens not as just rectilinear objects, but the whole sort of visual communication.
But it should be contextual as well, though. For me, always on screens are an interference to what I want to do, which is focus on the road, focus on my interior space. Contextual information when you need it, for me, that's the key to using screens responsibly. And whether that be, more of a sort of secret to lit, maybe it's a sort of, this approach of magical, as I say, which is more of a surface which comes to life when you touch it, or it's less in your face, it's just in the background, it's just dialed back a bit.
Go ahead, and then I want to move on to different
topics. Just a challenge, I think, at the moment, because I also think I see this from the customer side, that screens are the picture for luxury. Yeah, the more screens, the better.
But is that changing now?
Yeah,
because we can all have as many screens as we want now in any old car, right? Like, there's a lot of screens.
I think it needs to be human, and it needs to be human-centric, and people don't want to have this overload all the time. And the car is one of the last really personal cocoons they can have today, nowadays. So I think we need to curate this very well. And we are definitely at the tipping point then from like physical orientation to a digital-first designing philosophy. So we are more like screens are the strongest player on the stage, more or less. But we need to look behind that and beyond that.
So I think there is some level of consensus that screens for the sake of screens is probably not where the future is. Is that fair to say?
Certainly from my perspective, I would rather have more glass that I can see through and see the world around me.
So let's talk about how do we define luxury then? Like if you're thinking about the car of the future, and we agree it's not having a multitude of screens at your fingertips, what does it feel like? What are the materials? What does it smell like? What's the physical experience of being in this car? I mean, when I was a kid, there was this new car smell that you just got, like when your parents had a new car, your friend had a new car, and that's so closely tied to vehicles. What is the new car smell of the future going to be like? And how are you defining it? There's no more gasoline engines. Maybe the car is largely autonomous in its driving. What is the physical experience like?
I think it's all down to the sustainability of the materials that we choose. And the new luxury, new premium should be defined by the new materials. So creating new expressions of design by using those materials. A good example, and it's not from the automotive industry, it's from the contract furniture world, but Herman Miller, when they designed the Aeron chair, that expression of form came from those new material innovations. And I think the same thing is happening in the automotive industry. So we're less reliant on heavily upholstered leather seating, for example, and we're looking at lighter weight, more sustainable material choices for manufacture, which is very much inherent in its ability to be manufactured in new ways. So understanding new methods of design, engineering, manufacture can, I think, start to infiltrate into the customer's psyche in terms of how they perceive luxury and premium.
Where we are right now in China with FAW Group, there's a key word that often appears in the sort of Chinese conversation about good design. It's harmony. And, going back to the point about trying to sort of integrate or seamlessly have a digital interface that doesn't seem to jar, to have this sense of harmony that's born out of new materials. Sustainability is now a big part of the Chinese sort of ingredients into new car design. It's the designer's job to try and get some sort of feeling of relaxation. So the mobility A to B is probably the reason why you got in the car. But actually getting into that car versus that car is all about how you feel. And I think the sense of relaxation, the space quotient, which means that you're trying to liberate being oppressed, back to your point, Oliver, trying to make sure that the space quotient is actually maximized, comes back to how you treat materials and, the tactility of materials in some way. And I think the new generation, I'm talking about my son who likes fast cars, he likes loud cars, but he's aware of green issues in the world. It's happened. He's 17 years old and he will not buy a car if he knows that it's full of plastics that can't be recycled or toxic batteries. And there's another conversation that we can have. Because I would argue that actually battery recycling isn't the most green aspect of an end of life for an EV car right now. But back to my point about materials, I think there's a storyline that the younger generation will connect with, and that's very important. And then it's up to the designer to make sure that you can feel that story, that harmony, and biomaterials, I think, will be part of that in the future.
We have different values we customers expect in our cars, and different requirements, and this is how industry needs to adapt on that. And this is, I think, where we are very curious, inspired to lead this also, and create interiors more as a living space, for example. Or sustainability, circular materials is a highly interesting field of also push geometric design, and the interplay with digital parts is so important that we design more dialogue with the car rather than a product.
I think we've only really just touched the surface of what we're able to achieve with EV interiors, though, because a lot of the OEMs are still very reliant on their legacy infrastructure and their legacy platforms, which house an engine up front, it houses a transmission tunnel in the middle. And still a lot of the EVs I'm in feel like their ICE counterparts, their internal combustion engine counterparts. And frankly, until we remove that legacy from the process and we can design from scratch EV architectures that are inherently building blocks within a subframe that creates a much more sort of modular system that we can then build on top of our interior spaces, and giving us much more freedom to explore spaces and configurability of seating, for example. I think only then will we really start to realize the true impact of what we can achieve with an EV architecture.
Guys, we could keep talking about this for another couple of hours, but I think we should take a break. We'll come back and we'll be asking some more challenging questions about the future of interior design and how we transmit this idea of luxury for a more sustainable future. Thanks for being with us on the IAA Mobility Visionary Club. Check out part 2 of our talk with these guys, and we're going to be asking a little more challenging questions. I'll see you there.